the dominant teams win like every year. They go in and at least get to the World Series. I mean, this is just shocking. I heard baseball's ruined now. Baseball's system is broken. It can never be repaired because these dominant teams can't win. Baseball's destroyed. I wonder if they said that in 2006 when the 83 win Cardinals won it all. Probably not.
Is that no? So that's not the same group that was talking about how the Dodgers can want a third baseman and therefore get him.
Oh, that's right.
On the dollar. Is that the same?
That's right.
The same group that has a lot of anxiety because the Dodgers have 100 wins and might go this whole era with just a 2020 World Series. That they're the Dodgers of the modern era.
Right.
That group.
Hey, you just gave me another point for my sarcastic argument because people are going on and on about the Dodgers, and we can actually see the factors of why they're in big trouble. I mean, when you have two starting pitchers that, you're just at such a huge disadvantage early in the game, it's really hard to pull that off. But anyway.
Yeah, the Cardinals just spent an entire season living that.
Yeah. The Dodgers, and again, for the short attention span crowd that thinks this is something new and shocking, the Dodgers haven't won a World Series in a full season since 1988. Hell, I was like 29 years old then.
Wow.
I was covering the Dallas Cowboys. I was following. Go ahead. Where were you?
I was probably at Mile High Stadium watching the Denver Zephyrs.
Yeah.
Which was as close as we could get to. I mean, that's the highest level of professional baseball that existed in the entire time zone.
Derrick,
and I had to ask my dad for a ride.
Hey, Derrick, is there anything about the postseason so far? Because I tend to look at these things through a prism. I probably shouldn't, but I do. Is there anything jump out at you about in terms of some of the teams that are being successful that it kind of reinforces what we know about the Cardinals need to really focus on, number one, number two, number three, as far as what those priorities are? Is there anything from the postseason that just kind of reaffirms what you think and many of us think about what the Cardinals have to do?
Things stand out. One is that the Houston Astros are one win away from a 7th consecutive ALCS.
Wow.
That is bonkers. For all the teams that talk about the philosophy of get in, see how good you do. The Seattle Mariners recently articulated it. The Cardinals have for years. Theo Epstein did for decades. All that stuff where you just get in the tournament and find out what happens. Well, the Houston Astros have added a wrinkle to that argument because clearly they're doing something different. It's not a fluke to get the 4 consecutive. Well, the Cardinals would say it's not a fluke to get the 4 consecutive NLCSs because they did it. So they would claim that it's not a fluke. So what's 7 consecutive ALCSs? What does that mean for how a team is built and how a team is augmented and changed and upgraded over the course of the season? What do the Houston Astros tell the game about success in October? And I think that is the secret sauce. And that is the model that every team should chase. Not the get in to win it, but what do the Astros do to get in and win it? That to me is the stride that the Cardinals could take while the other teams are all just like, well, we just want to get in. Yeah, we want to get in and get hot. No, get what the Astros got. The other thing is I think it's really fascinating how I think you and I talked about this on the show, I think maybe even months ago, maybe even spring training, about the Nathan Eovaldi factor and this notion that a guy like him can change postseason fortune for good or for ill. He could be injured and be gone and not be a part of it, and maybe even the team that signs him doesn't get into it. But if he's there and he's available, we've seen what that kind of pitcher, what he specifically, but what that style of pitcher can do for a team. Now, he's done it for the Red Sox. He's now done it for the Rangers as a kind of addition, a October changer, if you will.
Yep.
And then when he wasn't there, the Red Sox finished last place. So I think, a pitcher like him and the wide variance of outcomes, but what he brings on this stage and how you find that. If you got to find it more consistently, fine, but how you're willing to maybe take a high-risk upside guy like that and be rewarded in October, I think is a really interesting factor here. That
No
the
doubt.
Eovaldi wild card is again in play.
One thing that I've talked about some of the stuff that everybody's talking about. You need a stronger bullpen with strikeout stuff. You need a starting rotation with obviously more strikeout stuff. There's all kinds of things like that. You know what? Also, and the fact that you cited the Astros, and I'm glad you did. One of the things that I'm talking about myself, I haven't talked about enough, is that the Cardinals have been aggressive to a point in terms of international signings, but they never. I don't know that they've ever consistently gone after the top guys. They're trying to find a value. They're trying to find maybe someone a little bit overlooked that they have a better reports on, and hoping maybe to catch lightning in a bottle. Does this team need more impact from the international market? I guess this would also apply to Asia. And then, of course, if they get the impact, then maybe not give up on the guys so they can go star for Texas and Tampa Bay. Cheap shot, but whatever. But do you think they do? Do you think they do enough? I mean, I'm talking about top shelf guys. They kind of flood the zone, but it doesn't mean they're getting the elite guys. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Right. No, that's okay. Their experience has been that they don't those elite guys, that they do better with that kind of the middle area, right, where they do flood the zone, where they go with quantity and expect quality to emerge. They've shifted a little bit. There's some players that they've reached on, that they've given 7-figure bonuses to here recently. Now the whole marketplace has changed too with the limits imposed by the new CBA, the past two CBAs. So it's not like it was when they were just teams playing penalties, and like a team like the Dodgers would be like, sure, we'll pay $1 for every dollar we spend on the international team. It's not that way anymore, and that was what gave the Dodgers a head start, and to a certain extent even the Braves, where they could spend the tax and meet the dollar for dollar and just load up on players. And then I think the Dodgers committed $250 million on international signings. Did they get $250 million worth of return? I don't know, but how many of those players became genuine stars? Puig was for a while. Urias was until this year. Now he's got off-field issues, maybe investigation that's going on. So I think that you look at what has been the return on that, whereas you look at the Cardinals, and they haven't had like the Puig, not at all. They may have moved the Puig to another team or not protected him on the 40-man roster, but they haven't had that guy. But they do have a Herrera. They did develop enough to trade a Oviedo to get a Quintana. So they had and a Stratton, and then turned Stratton and Montgomery into the talents that they got this deadline. So I think they have done okay, but they haven't really done like that impact guy, right? Like Acuna, Albies. They haven't had that, but not many teams have. And that is an area of like reflection for the Cardinals, how to do that better. Why they haven't had some of the guys who they really thought were high-end talents when they scouted them reach the majors. And that might end up, Bernie, being a development question, not an acquisition question.
Good point. Absolutely. Derrick Goold with us here on the Bernie Show at Friendly Sports Bar and Grill, South County at Bayless and 55. We'll be here till 6 o'clock, trivia at 6:30. Lou Korak talking Blues hockey at the top of the hour. Derrick, reading your chat as I always do, people were trying to, some of your readers at STL today were trying to get some clarity on the catching situation. You pointed out something I didn't know. because of the COVID season that kind of, changed a lot of things. Ivan Herrera still has options left, so they have a little one. So they have some flexibility there. But from reading your comments, your insights, it sounds like Wilson Contreras is all on board with the idea of getting a list of things that they'd like to see him improve at, and they're going to help him, as you alluded to, all likelihood, among other things, hiring a catching coach. But he sounds, and you know this better than anybody, I mean, you can give us the read. Is he fired up about wanting to still catch and doing what it takes to become a better catcher that would sort of live up to the Cardinals' pretty high standards because of the guy that was there for all that time?
Yeah, two thoughts on that. One is definitely the way he talks about it, and when you ask him about it, I would definitely say he is eager, willing, whatever it takes, point me in the right direction. I will work, I will do whatever's necessary. Give me time, give me a moment, and I'll show you the effort. I mean, he is all on board and motivated by that. I mean, he told me during spring training, and I wrote a story about it, and he means it. He wants to win a Gold Glove. He knows what people say. Heck, he knows what some of his teammates said about him this year with how that broke down. I mean, he wants to change that quote-unquote narrative, right? If I can abuse that word. He wants to change that reputation he has. And, man, if anything, he wants to put work behind it, because that is that's one of his talents, is work and interest and being driven. The other side of that is exactly, I find the way you put that fascinating, and maybe exactly the problem the Cardinals have is getting to the standard of the guy who had before him. You know what? To me, you can't spend 20 years telling us how Yadier Molina is unlike any catcher ever and is a Hall of Famer, and then spend the next year saying, why isn't this guy Yadier Molina?
Exactly.
You just told us there is nobody like Yadier Molina.
Exactly.
You just spent 20 years of my life telling me that nobody's like Yadier Molina. He has gifts that no other catcher has, and that makes him a Hall of Fame player. And we've heard that from pitchers, we've heard that from coaches, we've heard that from managers, we've heard that from other catchers. And he's earned every bit of that. But you cannot say that and then spend 12 months wondering why the guy who came in next isn't Yadier Molina. Yadier Molina is one of a kind, right? Just say that. And then say, how do we adapt? How do we as an organization adapt to the new guy we have? Not how do we take the new guy and make him adapt to us. It's got to meet in the middle.
That's
and this
right.
is a conversation when it all happened and all unspooled in May. I got a lot of pushback because I said, why don't you change to meet him? Like, what makes you so rigid and so perfect in your approach that you can't change to meet him? And maybe there's an opportunity to do that. We were talking about it on the podcast that you and I started, the best podcast in baseball. We were talking about how, maybe this year is the year to go, okay, nope, new era. It's the era of Dusty Blake and Wilson Contreras and whoever they sign. This is a new pitching era for the Cardinals. Molina retired a year ago. Wainwright retired this year. Jack Flaherty was traded. Maybe it'd be okay if there's a new look and a new start and a new paradigm around that pitching staff. Because you know what? The game certainly has one.
No doubt about it. And you and I feel exactly the same way on this stuff. And I'll also point out,
I think I'm going to get in trouble for what I said, but that's fine. I still believe it. And it's not anything I haven't.
What are you getting in trouble? No, that's me. I always joke that if I ever criticize Wainwright, I'm going to get arrested in St. Louis. So, but you're not going to get in trouble. No,
I'm not criticizing Wainwright. I'm just saying, this is the time. They talk about how they need to modernize their pitching. No,
exactly. No.
The way you guys have gone about it has served you well. Really has. It's got 16 consecutive winning seasons, 15 consecutive winning seasons. It got a pennant, a couple pennants. It got a couple World Series. It did really well. The industry has changed, and now you have this opportunity. You have a new still new, still young, rising talent as a pitching coach. So that's what you call him, and he's got ideas. And you got a new catcher, who is an offense-first catcher, and you're going to have a new elements of the rotation. There is no time like the present to say, okay, for 20 years, we told you how great this approach was, and it was. And now you need to find the next one.
I don't know what to make of catcher ERA statistics. I think it's an interesting thing to look at. I wouldn't make any sweeping conclusions, but I am amused by the fact, and I've mentioned this on the air a few times, when Wilson Contreras caught Jordan Montgomery, who was the one consistently good starting pitcher they had this season, Montgomery's ERA was 2.74. I wonder why that might be. Maybe because he's a good pitcher. You think that's got something to do with it, or I mean, it's just so silly. It's just so silly.
Yeah,
anyway.
I think there's something to the low strikes, right? And I mean, if there wasn't something to the low strikes, the Cardinals wouldn't have spent all spring working with Wilson to get the low strikes. And if there wasn't something to the low strikes, we wouldn't see catchers with one knee down, right?
Right.
So there is something to that where a guy who has an approach, it's down, down, down. I mean, I think Nola, right? Nola's game in the wild card round, right? His game was low, 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 low. And he didn't get a lot of strikeouts, right? But he was low. He missed the edges. He just was so good pitching that night. And some of that credit and some of the getting those low strikes should go to real movement. So that's an example of where a pitcher's approach can dominate with help from a catcher who can control that bottom of the zone.
Derrick, one more thing, and I'm keeping you a long time, but I got one more thing for you. Okay, we've talked about the pitching. We'll put that aside for now. Are we, not you, overlooking maybe some other things that should be on the to-do list that would help the Cardinals get turned around in 2024 that really have nothing to do with pitching? Because that's an obvious thing. What about their offense? Are there some things that need to be put on that list in your opinion?
No. I don't think so. I mean, outside of outfield clarity, but that can come internally. I think there are a few things that they could do, to the roster that would make it interesting. Like, they could be like kind of nice moves, either to change the feel of the clubhouse, to add in a veteran player on the position side who maybe moves it around a little bit, but brings you look at what Brad Miller did a while back, right? And now does for Texas. Is there a place for that kind of player in the clubhouse? Absolutely. Someone who can maybe even come in, share in the loudest voice in the room kind of role.
Right.
Maybe, but I don't think their offense needs anything to be productive other than health. And I actually think that the offense will be much better because Jordan Walker is going to be much better.
Yeah.
If Nolan Gorman can stay healthy, the Cardinals have what successful offenses have. They have power from the left side, and they have OPS from the right side, and they have OBP in Brendan Donovan at the top, and they have a contact hitter in Tommy Edmonds at the bottom. They have all the makings of a successful offense. They need health. They need some experience. It's not even. I mean, it's the offense is ready to go. It's just that they had this anchor of a pitching staff on it, and I think outside of changing the chemistry mix in the clubhouse, I'm not sure you need to do much with the position player side.
Derrick Goold, thank you, my friend. Appreciate you very much as always. And,
do you disagree with that, Bernie? Do you?
I like what you had to say. I like the way you broke that down. It's still got to be Pitching. There's no doubt about it. I mean, there's just you can't get around that. That's got to be where most of your resources go. It's inevitable and it's glaringly obvious.
Yeah.
But yeah, you might maybe see a tweak here and there with the position player thing. But I don't expect any major thing, and nor should they do that. So I'm with you. Until next.
I think adding a veteran would be kind of compelling. Like a like an Aaron. I'm trying to think of a style. Somebody who brings can play. Like Brad Miller comes to mind, or like a major leaguer guy who's been around, a Mark DeRosa style, who's not an everyday player, like kind of sort of Twilight era Mark DeRosa. It'd be kind of fascinating to be maybe a little bit of edge to the clubhouse. Definitely some seasoning. That'd be kind of fascinating.
No doubt about it. And TLR used to like to have those guys around, and so that's good enough for me. We'll talk to you next week, my man. Thank you so much.
All right, sounds good. Yep. Thanks,
Yep, thank you. That's a great Derrick Goold here on 590 Fan KFNS. We're live at Friendly Sports Bar and Grill.